good morning to you wherever you are. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain, so.
And from here in Lagos, Nigeria, good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Okay, so yes, indeed, quite a number of things going on. Not to worry, you get to see my colleagues pretty soon. But this focus, this nomination and confirmation of some resident electoral commissioners by the Senate continues to generate a lot of concerns. Well, we've seen what the law says. We've highlighted that time and again. So how it is hugely important to ensure that the independence of INEC, not just in word or text, but it's got to be seen, and it has to permeate across board that they are indeed so. But that appears in jeopardy now because confirmation of persons who have affiliations, who have also been publicly identified with political parties, will definitely raise questions about the independence or otherwise of that particular commission. And so when those resident electoral commissioners were confirmed, it's only natural for people to raise eyebrow asking, what do you expect of the independence of the commission if you have persons who are openly loyal? Look, it's not about having tacit or affinity or distant support to a certain political party, but if you're a car carrying member and you've been seen and a judge to be so publicly, what business do they have being members of a commission that is supposed to be an umpire? And so that's why we're focusing on that again, calling on the Senate. If there was a mistake on the part of the presidency, how about the Senate? And besides, they were even supposed to have referred it to a committee, but it turns out that that was expressly confirmed. Much as some of them say, look, we were not aware. Look, it's out there now in the public. So are they still claiming that they are not aware that this is the status of those who they've confirmed? Well, that certainly will not go down well with a lot of people because if people, look, a lot rises and falls with the way we elect those who run the affairs of state. If we don't get it right, you can imagine how many other things will go wrong. And that's why we'll keep insisting and ensuring that the right things be done. And so those persons who have been identified, as a matter of fact, you also get to see images with some of them who are confirmed, who have openly hobnobbing and being members of political parties. It's shocking and least expected. So they need to be forthright.
Well, Chamberlain, let's one of the things that we need to recall is, first of all, what are the functions that are at stake here? One of the questions that I've continued to ask, and I'm still looking for answers to, is what are the functions of the resident electoral commissioners? Exactly what are they expected to do? Do they, are they at the polling units? Are they even the returning officers? I remember, that particular issue that occurred, I think it was in Adamawa State, where, the resident electoral commissioner was there. Please, you may guide me, Chamberlain, here if I'm mixing this up, where the resident electoral commissioner was there, but he was not the one that was supposed to make the announcements of the election or who it was that won that particular election at the time. But that happened, and then, of course, there was an uproar. So I asked the question again, exactly what are the functions of the resident electoral commissioner in a state? We know, of course, a good number of them have their way of ensuring that proper things are done, where they are, found to be responsible. But if you look at the third schedule of the Constitution, the functions of the National Independent National Electoral Commission is right there in your face. And if you take a critical look, you'll find that it is clear what the commission is expected to do, but who are supposed to be in that commission is there, one. Secondly, what are the functions of the resident electoral commission? The resident electoral commissioner in each of the states in the country. Maybe if people understand that, maybe there will be better understanding. However, the law and the Constitution is not ambiguous about who should be what. Third schedule of the Constitution, F214(2), says a member of the Commission shall be a person, shall be non-partisan and a person of unquestionable integrity, and B, not less than 40 years of age and on. C, there shall be for each state of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory a resident electoral commissioner who shall A, be appointed by the President, B, be a person of unquestionable integrity, and shall not be a member of any political party. It's in the Constitution. And not less than 35 years of age. This is what is in the Constitution. Please, I'm still looking for the functions of the resident electoral commissioner. If we do not have a function for the resident electoral commissioner, then what do we need one for? Maybe it's time. I think one of our guests previously, Chamberlain, if you remember, even raised that issue. Shouldn't we even reconsider the assignment of a resident electoral commissioner in the first place, if this is the way it's going to be going, if this is what we're going to have a situation where card-carrying members or people who are sensitive or sentimental to a political party are appointed into office to do what exactly? How much influence does the resident electoral commissioner have? Do they control the apparatus of the elections? Exactly what are their functions? Maybe if we know the functions, maybe then we can begin to question a number of things, but question still remains that as far as the federal government is concerned, a misstep has happened. And the president has been known to retrace his steps. The president has been known to review his decisions. So let's hope that this is one of those things that's going to happen. Chamberlain.
Okay, so let's have you take a look at this report, because when there are former commissioners of states, former commissioners of local governments, former commissioners who are clearly, in fact, take a look at this report. It just highlights the message that we're trying to pass across.
The credibility of the Independent National Electoral Commission has been under scrutiny over the conduct of the 2023 general election, leading to several litigations across the country. The electoral umpire is, however, in the news again over the appointment of some resident electoral commissioners.
For the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, those in favor of the confirmation say aye. Those against
Specifically, the confirmation of some resident electoral commissioners for Edo and Akwa Ibom states has drawn outrage from some civil society groups and the PDP, who accused both men of partisanship.
Honorable Onoha, to speak to your people.
The groups also described the regs for Lagos and Rivers states as loyalists or surrogates of senior members of the ruling party.
How can you explain to a Nigerian that this person was confirmed by a democratic institution to serve as an umpire? How do you expect them to superintend over elections and expect people to turn up to vote?
The PDP, therefore, in clear and unequivocal terms, reject the imposition of the Tekamba Umarin as INEC read.
However, the Senate denies any wrongdoing, despite receiving this petition on November 1, 2023, 24 hours before the screening and confirmation.
It's not for us, it's not for me, it's not for anybody to suggest that you are likely to be a member of a party. It's not for me, it's not for anybody to do. But whoever has the fact is supposed to bring the fact before the Senate.
But come to think of it, President Tinubu and his supporters may want Nigerians to cut him some slack as our history books reveal a trajectory of nominating card-carrying members into such institutions. For instance, in 2019 and 2021, former President Muhammadu Buhari nominated Olalekan Rahim and Loretta Onoche, who at the time were card-carrying members of the APC. Both nominations were subsequently rejected. And early this year, chaos and violence marred the conduct of the governorship elections in Adamawa State, following the legal announcement of a winner during elections by the former Adamawa Reg, Mr. Huduari. As we consider the state of Nigeria's electoral process and democracy, it's important to remind President Bola Tinubu and the leadership of the 10th Senate about the third schedule, item F, paragraph 14 of the 1999 Constitution, which expressly disapproves of the appointment of any partisan or card-carrying member of a political party into such positions. But despite the protests, petition, and pressure, will Mr. President withdraw these nominations who have already been confirmed by the Senate? Kelly Egiga, Channels Television News.
Okay, so there are yet more reactions on that one because some of the images and pictures that are showing of, for instance, that of Abubakar Sambo, who was a former commissioner for local government and chief TC affairs for Zamfara State, who shortly before that confirmation, pictures of him with the Minister of State for Defense, former governor of Zamfara, also circulating. So those are things that you just keep asking yourself, look, what exactly are they trying to do? Are they trying to ensure, just put it in people's faces, rub it in their faces, saying, look, this is what it is, deal with it? But if that's a blatant violation of the law, they'll be allowed to stand. All right. Take a look at the dailies now. Let's take you through some of them. We'll start with Vanguard newspaper here today. Presidential poll. Presidency, APC, attack Obi over stance on Supreme Court verdict. Nigeria's democracy, victim of Apex Court's judgment ascribed to Obi. Laments court ignored evidence of forgery rigging. Insists this is just the beginning of struggle. States opposition to bad policies starts now. Find better job. Top attacking judiciary. Presidency tells Obi. Adds no court gives judgment based on public opinion. APC faults Obi's haughty sense of entitlement. That's in parentheses there. So that's what you see right there on the front page of Vanguard newspaper today. And then this was highlighted yesterday in the news as well. Suspended Adamawa Reg Hudu on the run, ascribed to INEC. You know, so that's the thing. Look, when they were being, when they were carrying out, let me not say being used, but when they were perpetrating those kind of acts, they should know that there are consequences. And that is how it should be from the point of law. But one thing we don't want to see is that, well, after a few months or years, the matter dies and you don't get to hear anything about it. Look, the law is the law. It doesn't matter how long you run from the law. You shouldn't be able to hide. Even if it's 20 years, law should catch up with people. That's the way it should work. That's the way you get to restore that sense that, look, there has to be the rule of law so people can comply with all of those things. So, U.S. advisory can create panic, affect economy, ascribed to the federal government concerning the advisory that they gave at some point in time. That is Vanguard newspaper today.
And if you check other papers that we have this morning, one of them that will interest you is, of course, Daily Trust. Beg your pardon. This Nigeria newspaper, speaking the same language, really. Obi presidency disagree over Supreme Court ruling. LP candidate trust in judiciary undermined. FG, your case watery and unreasonable. That's the lead of the paper this morning at the bottom of the page. Police to deploy 40,000 personnel in Kogi Gilbert poll. IGP warns perpetrators of violence in Bayelsa as Ohaneze sues for peace in Imo. We look forward to nothing but peaceful elections in Imo, Kogi, Bayelsa states. Beside the nameplate, Nigeria's foreign reserves hit $33.4 billion in October. That's according to CBN. Find the details of that on page 19 of the paper. That's this Nigeria newspaper this morning.
Take a look at The Guardian next, and they're focusing on the elections as well. Less than 30% of registered voters will decide Bayelsa, Imo, Kogi polls, less than 30% of registered voters. Wow, what a statement for voter apathy. And so these are things that you've highlighted. It's not rocket science, especially if you see the confidence going south for the performance of INEC. These are the kind of things you see. Now, if they say less than 30% of registered voters, this is, okay, let me just read through some of this, because on that particular day, you will see a lot less. Probably when you get to see the figures of voter turnout, then we'll revisit this one. Look at what they also highlight here, though. Voter turnout, Bayelsa down by 20 points from 36.4% to 16.4%. Kogi dropped by 9 points from 33.6% to 24.6%. And then, that of Imo isn't here in terms of this voter turnout data. But look at the registered voter figure. You see that of Imo. When you see a total of 5,409,438, you see that of Imo just shy over 2.5 million. That's 2,419,922. Bayelsa 1.56 million. Kogi 1.932, approximately 2 million thereabouts. So, but you see, this are the people who will eventually go out there and decide. And some of you in your profession, in different areas, you vie for what you could describe as little elections, and then you have more than some of these people voting for you there, and this is what it takes to be a governor. So you take it home. I mean, once upon a time, at some point, I think it was about less than 300,000 that decided a state election. Yeah, in this same country. So it's just about time. You need to get out there and see what you can do. It's not just about, yeah, I know many will say, look, the system is, we can't, but look, there has to be a way. You can't all just keep complaining. Everybody's headed up to here, I tell you. But at some point, you need to amass that critical mass, or people of like minds, even if it's not a like mind, just get in, start from somewhere, and then begin to inch your way up, because that's how these other people started. No difference. That is how they decided to throw their hat in the ring. And so we think the same thing can happen if you decide. So looking at these figures, nothing should stop you. Nothing. And it says, of the registered voters in Imo, only 20% voted in February. Only 20%. So who says you can't canvass? You market a lot of things, there's millions of people. Who says you can't do this? That's the same principle. There you go. And then drawbacks, that's about the economy, but this one, similar to, referring to what transpired with Labour Party briefing yesterday, Obi hints at recontesting in 2027, canvasses rotational 5-year single term for presidents. He did say they are now effectively in opposition, which some persons in Labour Party and his supporters felt, what in the world is he talking about? Why would he decide to put us in that bracket? So what is it the opposition does? Criticize something? No, that's not what we want to do. They think they want more, but that's what it is right now, I tell you. So when he then says that, then takes a shot at what should be happening. So typology of opposition. So PDP is in the opposition as well. So who knows if it's going to stay that way for 2027. That is Vanguard here. I beg your pardon. I keep saying that. That's Guardian this morning. Mark was here.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, and thank you so much for holding fort. Looking at New Telegraph for you, and they are focusing also on the elections, but more importantly, on what is happening in Imo State. NLC says Imo CP's redeployment not enough to stop planned strike as 5-day ultimatum expires. Insists other demands criminal, grave, can't be wished away. So they're still standing by their demands as the Imo, people of Imo, the electorate in Imo, goes to the polls, and they want a number of things done. One of them was the redeployment of the CP, especially after their, well, not there now, I think it's the NLC president, is all our president now, isn't it? Nigeria Labour Congress.
Well.
So after he was malhandled, so page 3 is where you'll find details. I think one of the demands was that the CP be redeployed, but they're now saying that alone is not enough to stop their planned strike. And this is NLC and TUC planning one together.
We're redeploying him, not that he's guilty of anything.
Yeah, but to show neutrality.
You'll just redeploy him, so don't take it to the bank that this and that. Probably for them, it doesn't add up that way.
Okay, so you also see this. Federal government reassures citizens, foreigners of safety, security in Nigeria. Says U.S. travel advisory, needless panic. 3 feared dead as fire guts part of Canadian embassy in Abuja. Tinubu condoles with Canadian government and victims. Well, yesterday in Abuja, there were 2 major fires. One at the Canadian embassy, sadly, which took lives, and another one at a popular electronics retail joint in Wuse. A really, really big fire. So big question to ask of the fire service, whom we saw inspecting fire trucks, newly acquired fire trucks. Those newly acquired fire trucks, I hope they don't imagine that they're for decoration. You know, they're supposed to be put to good use. One wonder what precisely happened. How come there were no fire trucks at the places where fires were reported? Now, at the embassy, one might say, okay, that's foreign land, but you know, that portion of land is usually designated belonging to the government of that particular country according to the diplomatic rules. But I imagine that they would have called, or if there was one, if they had the number, the fire service to see how they could be of help. Now, eventually, I don't know if they did or how they put out the fire. But the one we saw blazing in Wuse Market was blazing all by itself. I mean, it didn't look like the fire services were if they were there, they were there on time. The whole building was already gutted.
Questions for FCT's emergency response.
Yes, indeed. Big questions for FCT's
what excuse do they have now? Have roads that you can ply? It's not as choked up.
Yes, and this happened at night. So if there's anywhere you can quickly get to within the FCT, it will be within.
Do they have emergency numbers?
Right in the middle of the city.
Does it ever work?
The 122 works. I've tried it before. It will direct you. It's the FRST that operates that particular number, 112 or 122. I'm not very certain. They say if you try anyone, it most likely will go. And they will pick up. And then if they're not the ones that you need to talk to, they will redirect you to the person who you should be
These are the things that will add up to KPIs in terms of how ministers perform. Because Mr. Keyamo has already read the Riot Act. I think his own ministry is going to be open to the blind because how they perform, how he performs. So he's already said, look, this agency's CEO, Nama, all of you, if you don't perform, please, you'll not let me lose my job. You go out first. You will bow and go first before me. Because Mr. Keyamo knows that Nigerians will easily report, look, this flight was supposed to leave at this time. It never happened. We were supposed to get the refund for this. It never happened. We were supposed, and you can imagine if it begins to pile up in that app, that pie chart of performance analysis of ministers, his figures will go down. So he doesn't want that.
Okay, well, there are a number of other stories you might want to consider here. Revenue generation, federal government agencies' earnings rise by 15.6% to 378.07 billion. And you also see them tracking what's happening to the Naira at the I&E window. Naira weakens to 809 Naira 2 kobo to the dollar at the I&E window. Look at the side here. So many things to look at, to be honest, but I know that parents will not be very happy about this one. Kids under 2 years shouldn't be allowed any screen time. That's attributed to doctors. Doctors should advise the parents on how to keep their 2-year-olds busy. I mean, sometimes it's just a temptation to put them in front of the TV so you can have some time to do something. But hey, I think our parents need to be more intentional because that can actually affect the concentration levels of children. We'll leave it there for New Telegraph, despite the temptation of taking many more stories.
Well, even the bit that you took, Markwa, is actually very, very instructive. I remember checking online some years ago, almost 10 years ago, and I found out that too much screen time dulls the brain. It was a scary consideration, but hey. And talking about brains, look at the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning. Amid cash crunch, FG asks varsities, others to remit 40% revenue. That story is on page 4. And guess what? The writers, students, lecturers kick, say deduction dangerous to system. Schools decline comment on IGR. Wait a minute. What's up with the student loan scheme? I thought I saw in the papers recently that scheme has taken off. Has it taken off, or is there something we're missing? Let students who have benefited, or schools, that are already enjoying that privilege, please let us know so that we can put that also out. And right under the nameplate, 6 manufacturing firms post 166.3 billion naira losses in 9 months. I was so hoping it would be gains. But hey, that's what you have on the front page. It continues. The story continues on page 7 of the paper this morning. And one of the stories that made the rounds in the past few days, here is the federal government's response. FG allays fears over U.S. travel advisory. Find that story on page 7 of the paper this morning, among a number of other things that you will find quite interesting. The Nigerian News Direct has this on its front page. It's cheering, we dare say. Or is it? CBN borrowing to banks increases by 466% to 268.3 billion naira. What does that mean? Look at the riders. Manufacturers' debt to banks hit 6.98 trillion naira in June. That's according to CBN. Expert raises alarm over banks' liquidity. That story is on page 3 of the paper this morning. Find the details therein. NLNG Train 7 project hits 52% completion. This is a little particularly exciting because the company already has 6 trains, and guess what? The 7th train means more money for the Federation. Maybe that will increase their own GDP to the federal government. That's a number of other stories you'll find interesting on the front page of the paper this morning. Pick the one that interests you, and it will be just that. Look at the front page of Business Day newspaper as well. What do you have? Business Day is talking about the same thing. FG's borrowing from CBN still exceeds limit. Now, this is it's a different perspective. FG's borrowing from CBN still exceeds limit, stands at 4.38 trillion naira after Buhari's conversion. Find the details of that on the front page. It continues on page 34 of the paper this morning. For those of you who are interested in what's going on, the spat between Dangote and Bua, the story is right there at the bottom of the page. Dangote-Bua spat calls for stiffer anti-competition rules. For those of you who need more information on that, the story continues on page 35 from the front page. Nigeria's mobile money agent outlets hits 6-year high, among others. That's according to the IMF. Judiciary no longer hope of the common man, says Odenkalu, law professor. What does that mean? How does that help strengthen our institutions or government agencies or government systems? That's the details of that you find on page 27. That's Business Day this morning, as well as you look at some of the stories on the front pages this morning. We're back right after now to begin to take the issues as they come. Do stay with us.
Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, the Professor Kenneth Amechi joins us now. He is the chairman, Sustainable Finance, European University Institute. Lawrence is also chief economic advisor to Imo State government. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Morning, and thanks for having me.
Well, we're focusing on states today in terms of performance, what should be, what the reality is, probably why. So probably you might have some insight. But we do remember that last government, one of the ministers for budget and planning, I think, did categorically say that we should lay the blame of rising cases of poverty on states because they were not contributing their quota, the developmental quota to the country. That was long after. That was not too long after the report by the MBS over about 133 million Nigerians being multidimensionally poor. And so, yes, we focus on at the center for a number of things, but the states of huge importance as well. So if we could start with that, in terms of having been in an advisory capacity, and if you could just probably start on a broad-based perspective in terms of how states perform, are there things that we're missing? Or first of all, do you think they're doing enough in the first instance?
I think that's an interesting question, and I would argue that development should be every person's concern, to both the federal government, state government, and even local government, if you put it that way. So the states, of course, have a role to play because they are closer to the people. And what happens is that as the farther away you are from government, the more one might also be disenchanted. So states are closer, local governments are even closer to people. So I think, yes, I agree that they have a role to play in development.
But from what you're seeing, are they pulling their weight?
It depends. If you think about Lagos, for example, there was a time Lagos had some issues with the federal government, and it spurred Lagos to perform or become what it is today to a large extent. You also see states like Kaduna or Edo State of late also doing similar things. And of course, I won't rule out Imo State in terms of what we are doing, but I think we'll come to that if we want to explore. But I think different states are at different levels of engagement, but also depends on leadership of these different states.
So now that, how come, do you agree with the statement at the time that, for instance, if we could bring it to our present reality, yes, the government says 5 billion will go to some of these states, but at the moment 2 billion has gone in there. And different states say they are utilizing that funds differently. So being someone who is in sustainable finance, did you, and I know you work with a lot of templates so you can see results. So first, again, broad-based before we'll see how we can zero down. From the method that the states are using to administer these funds and their programs or whatever platform they use, do you think that is sustainable?
I think the money was kind of described as a palliative, right? Mm-hmm. So if you put it that way, in the long term, it's not sustainable. I would see it more as a short-term measure, but it's not the only instrument. There are other plans that I've had that the federal government wants to put in place. So if we take this in isolation, it may not give us the entire picture. But I would rather situate it in terms of its peculiarities. But the good thing about it, if you ask me, is that the money is in the economy. So whether some people might want to go into infrastructure, some people might want to do cash transfer, some people may want to support small businesses, they have reasons because it's about the peculiarities of their context.
But, pardon me, at what point can we say it's in the economy? If the states are not utilizing proper data, ensuring that it gets to the right people, if certain people are lining their pockets, if I assume that's the case because we haven't seen templates, can we then say it's still in the economy?
I mean, the money is in the economy in the sense that it is spent in Nigeria. You talk about leakages when it comes to some of the policies. Assuming the money is distributed and then it escapes the country, then it's not in the economy. But you can also say, well, the money is there, but it's lying somewhere in the bank. I mean, you also expect the bank to use it. So that's what I mean by it is in the economy. So if you see the economy as a system, okay, then the money is in there. But then the question is, are there efficient or better ways of making the money work better for the system? And I think that is a different question.
But the reason why it was given is to ensure that it gets to people. Yes, it's a short-term measure, but if people, because we here have tried to see, look, do we even have the proper data for them to utilize this? Because that's, we stand corrected, that's what they can use for planning.
Data, I'll tell you for free, is a big problem in Africa. And a lot of people have written about it. So it's not something peculiar to Nigeria, but that's not an excuse. We should have proper data. Data is important for development.
Why is it a problem, though?
It can be it can be attributed to many reasons. One, data in itself can be political, right? Think about population. And how, if you know your population and is well captured, it might also change some things, and people might see that as a very political space to be in. It could also be a function of capacity, capability. We rely on the federal civil service or state apparatus, but sometimes these states don't have the capacity to deliver the kind of data you want. It might also be a function of technology. Think about the big data revolution. To what extent are we leveraging on our technologies? But also, data is not just about the government. Data is also about people. There is movement now called citizenship-led data. And think about our corporation. Do you know the amount of data telecom firms have? To what extent are we integrating that data with the government in order to make better decisions? So you see, data shouldn't be seen only as the responsibility of the government, although the government has to oversee or has that responsibility to ensure that data in the country or for the country is used appropriately for decision making. But there are different sources through which you can get that data. And I believe if we bring the private sector closer, we may learn a lot from them and use the data for better policy making.
Well, in your work as Chief Economic Advisor, because right now I don't imagine that you are giving your advice from up in the air or theorizing. You have been in Imo State where it is that you have some practical, hands-on experience in terms of the challenges that faces government from theory to execution. I would like you to share a few of them. What, apart from data, I think you've highlighted data and also the issue of capacity. I've heard that. In fact, as a matter of fact, I wrote that down before now in terms of, assessing the capacity of leaders transiting from, their campaigns to actually delivering on the ground and through the systems that they also have on the ground to help achieve some of the things that they have. So what would you say has been some of the greatest obstacles, when you look at what economic theories and actually implementing things on the ground?
Before I go to the challenges, you talked about the data we have, right? So I wouldn't say we are starting from ground zero. So it will also be discrediting the National Bureau of Statistics and even the State Bureau of Statistics. There are some data out there. Say, for example, we know the cost of fuel today. We know what it takes, food basket, for example. But also we know that unemployment is high, especially youth unemployment. We can't, even if we don't have the data, we feel it. It's all around us. So there is a data that says that Imo State has a significant number of unemployed people in Nigeria. And that's because Imo State has become a victim of our own success, because a lot of graduates, Imo State graduates a lot of people, but Imo State cannot absorb all of them. So you see people moving to Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt looking for jobs. So that's why the government came up with the idea of training 300,000 people in digital skills, because with that, you have people that will be self-employed at least. So they are not looking for jobs, and they can stay in Imo State and work for companies abroad. So, and also, abroad here doesn't necessarily mean, it's not exclusive that you have to travel abroad, but you can also work for companies in Lagos. It's cheaper to be an IT person in Owerri than being in Lagos, because you can afford, you can provide affordable services. So that's it on one hand. But if you look at the multiplier effect of the 300,000 people, assuming you take a multiplier effect in the sense of one person has impact on two people, for example. So you're already looking at about 900,000 people. But the data we have says about over 1 million people are unemployed in Imo State. So that single project in itself can unleash a lot in a way that will address unemployment. But beyond that, we also recognize that not every person will be interested in digital technology. So the government has also come up with what is called One Kindred, One Business initiative. It is about putting groups together to work, and you can use your old cooperative, but it does not necessarily mean a cooperative. So imagine a village, and this is based on the Igbo social structure of Umunna, because they go home, Christmas is coming around. People will spend money investing or building town halls that can be used maybe once or twice a year. They donate to churches. I don't have anything against the churches. But why can't we come together and create economic, productive entities? Since we can already show that sense of communal existence. And that's the One Kindred, One Business initiative. And Imo State is looking at creating about 5,000 of them in the next few years.
Producing what precisely?
Sorry?
Producing what? What areas will you be encouraging those businesses to be looking at?
So at the moment, the state is not dictating for them, but it's also for them to look at their core competencies. Say, for example, they can go into poultry farming. How much does it cost to start a 300-bird poultry? It may not be up to 10 million naira. And the kindreds can raise that money to do that.
Isn't this political?
No, it's not political. Because this thing started back in January, right? And it's not political. We would have held a summit tomorrow, actually. But we moved it because we don't want it to be politicized. So let the elections come and go, and hopefully the governor will be re-elected, and it continues. So there's nothing political about it, and it's speaking to everyone. It's not party-based. And the good thing to mention here is that the government is not investing at the moment, so that you need to have a skin in the game. And why the government is taking that position is that you don't want a situation whereby you say there is money, and then it's politicized, and
what's the yardstick for selecting the people who are qualified?
The yardstick is that there are 4 criteria. 1, it has to be a group-owned business, right? 2, it has to be focused on employment creation. 3, it has to be profit-oriented. This is not charity. And 4, it has to be domiciled in Imo State. And the 5th one is that it has to be registered. It's a way of addressing informality. So we use the PI, it has to address poverty, it has to address informality, and it has to address employment challenges. That's the PIE kind of acronym there.
But pardon me, but isn't this tantamount to reinventing the wheel? Because I heard several residents there say, there's a template already that former leader there, Sambakwe, had. Every local government area, there's an industry there, and that was hugely significant and sustainable and successful at the time. Why didn't you just replicate it?
Well, this is not completely new. You can also say there is one thing the federal ministry, I think is the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, also has one local government, one product. That is the OLOP. But a product is not a business. So that's the difference between what Imo State is doing here, which is new, because it can have a product. The product is a commodity. But if you build a business around it, and this business doesn't necessarily need to be commodity-based. I gave you the example of poultry. Do you know that the poultry products consumed in Imo State, you say Imo State is the hospitality capital of the Southeast at least, but you find out that Imo people are not able to produce enough to satisfy this industry. And this industry sometimes imports goods from outside Imo State. So that in itself will drive demand. And it's not about one local government, one product per se, but like I said, it's about business. And you talked about Sambakwe. Sambakwe, I've challenged people to show me the industrial policy of Sambakwe. I haven't found it yet, but he did great. So the government also, last year, November 2nd, launched an industrial policy, which is guiding what we are doing at the moment. So we just had a 1-year review of it. And the digital economy came top on that industrial policy, as well as the agribusiness agenda, which we are now trying to champion with the One Kindred, One Business initiative.
It is interesting. I think that digital trading thingy must have been, I don't want to say misrepresented, or maybe it's how the governor also represented it in the media. I don't know if you saw the articles that came up on the heels of him trying to campaign with that. And how youths were very ecstatic. I mean, it was as if he was promising them visas and saying that he was going to ship them abroad and, find jobs for them abroad. And the media, of course, picked up on that. And there was, very heavy criticism because he didn't explain it like this. This was not how he explained it. So would you say that the governor also understands what he's saying and he's transmitting same correctly to the people?
Of course, the governor understands it. And the Digital Skill Program was approved by ESCO. So it wasn't as if it was made up on the hoof. No. So, and I mean, there is also the sense that things can be read out of context. But you also think about how you take a bad story or a crisis and it becomes something positive. And I would say to a large extent, probably was a crisis, but that crisis has also helped a lot of people in Nigeria to know what
you saw the controversy? Did you see it?
I saw. I mean, I was not in the country at the time, but I followed most of those things online. It was controversial, but also the commissioner in charge, I guess, was on a rise, and to explain things together with the chief political advisor to the governor. And I thought they did a very good job by presenting things in a much more balanced perspective. So this is election time. Anything can happen. People can take things out of context to make some kind of a political capital out of it. But one thing I know for sure is that the digital skill is a well-thought-out program, and the commissioner, the people in charge are pushing it. As of today, they are launching the third cohort, and I think they're looking at about 40,000 people. So if you go to Owerri today, 10 a.m., the governor will be there to launch it. But maybe the media is not picking up on that. Hopefully they do, so that this can be seen as something that is not just political in itself.
It'll be very interesting. You've talked about how, okay, I understand that my colleague Ayo has questions for you.
Well,
over to you.
Thank you, Mokwe. Prof, I just wanted to, something that you were discussing with my colleagues right there earlier about sustainable finance. I think that's one of the first few questions Chamberlain asked you. You would agree with me that at the heart of sustainable finance are the interaction of economic, social, and environmental issues with finance. How well would you say states are doing or able to do in that regard? I know you may want to give the example of Imo State, but what are the drop-downs? What are the challenges? Markwe asked you about that, but in terms of this interaction of economic, social, and environmental issues with finance, how well are we doing, in your own opinion?
I think that's a very good question, but it's not something limited to Imo State. I do a lot of work with the banks in Nigeria and also abroad. And I sit on the European Commission's Committee on Sustainable Finance for Emerging Markets. So the point there about sustainable finance, as you have articulated, is the integration of economic issues, environmental issues, and even governance issues. So it's not limited to Nigeria or Imo State, as I've said. Well, you find that, I mean, Nigeria, for example, we have the Nigerian Sustainable Banking Principles, which is led by the CBN, and the banks are following to a large extent. You also have organizations like SEC pushing issues around companies that are quoted to pay attention to their environmental issues as well. But are we where we should be comfortable with? No, I don't think so. Some people have said that this is a journey. One of the also problems in terms of the global aspect of sustainable finance, especially if you're looking at it from the global north, and here I'm looking at developed economies, sustainable finance is simply climate finance, and it's something we need to move away from if we want to also have that global south perspective to it. Because I will argue that unemployment is a big problem in Africa. Like I said, about 60% of African youth are unemployed. So sustainable finance is also about addressing social sustainability issues. And if we look at our development from our own perspective, it will also give us that coloration that will help us address some of these challenges. I talked about the Imo State industrial policy, which was launched last year. And we took this into consideration. We prioritize areas that will contribute to jobs. So we don't want to bring in big companies that will just make money and create very little jobs. So people always talk about, oh, how much foreign direct investment have you brought in? So that's not the question for me. The question is, what sort of investors do we need? We need investors that will come in to address our problems, make money from that, but also investors that will grow with us.
Prof.
Meet us where we are and grow with us. But if they come with only their agendas and they're only interested in themselves, I think that's not the sort of investors that will work for Nigeria or Imo State and even for
on
Africa
that,
at large.
At the end of the day, and from most of the things that you've said this morning, it's always about the people. But the question that I'd like to ask you is, how effectively would you say governments, especially state governments, are able to communicate their intentions to the people, to the point that the people will take ownership of it? Because it would seem like most of the time when we talk about these things, the people are on one side, the government is just doing what it wants. So do you see government officials or government at all being effective in their communication to the people to the point that they can own whatever government policies are coming out?
From my experience doing this job now, I want to mention that I do it on part-time basis as well as on a pro bono basis. The government doesn't pay me. So I've done it now for like 20 months. One thing I've learned, it wasn't a surprise, so to speak, is that there is what I may call trust deficit between the people and the government. And so the question you're raising now is a very important one, because when you go out there and promote some of these policies or practices, like, say, for example, the One Kindred, One Business initiative, people are always doubtful. Are you on the side of government? We don't want to get involved. And then you try to tell them, this is not about government. If you set up a poultry business in your community, how would that become a government's problem? Even if this government serves its term and it's not in office, how does it affect this? So that trust deficit in itself is a problem. But the paradox there is that we also think the government we do not like, we do not trust, should save us. And that, for me, is paradoxical. So that's why I keep telling people that it's not about government per se, but also what we can do for ourselves. And I see governance as a collaborative endeavor. It's not something we should just leave to governments to do. People should be involved at all levels, and also corporations. So again, in Imo State, we set up what we call Corporate Imo Impact Partnership. So there we brought in companies, not in any kind of contractual arrangement, but we brought in companies to look at what Imo State is doing and how they can contribute to the development, because companies or the private sector should be seen as an equal partner in the development journey. But in Nigeria and many African countries, companies are treated as second class when it comes to development, and they're not given the sort of responsibility that will make that work.
All right. I know you have some tight schedule, so I'm sure that at some point, probably later, we'll have an expansive session and break down those figures and see whether or not those policies are impacting the figures. So that's one area that we'll project in the days ahead. But we do thank you for coming on, and we wish you all the best. Professor Kenneth Amechi, Chairman, Sustainable Finance, European University Institute Florence, and also Chief Economic Advisor to Imo State government. And we hope they'll have peaceful elections this time.
Thank you very much.
We're back in just a moment, everyone. Stay on with us. Welcome by Major General Lincoln Ogunawa as a former military officer and also the governorship candidate for the Action Alliance. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Okay, General, I hope you can hear us. Can you hear us?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, nice. So, so let's get down to this. How is your campaign going on at the moment?
I'm in the last lap of the campaign, and it's going on very, very well. The momentum is gathering, and everything is okay.
Okay, so what is this we hear about contentions of your candidature? Some saying that, no, you are not the candidate of AA, that you belong to a group that has been sacked by the court, and so they don't know what is going on and why you call yourself the candidate.
That issue has been settled and settled for good. Any other thing about it, I consider it as propaganda. I am the candidate of Action Alliance, and my name has been uploaded, and nothing has happened to it. So I am the authentic candidate of Action Alliance.
Okay, so the elections will be going on this weekend. And well, you say your name has been uploaded, even though they say they're going to sue the commission for contempt because they are not adhering to that. But hopefully that will be sorted. But right now, there are those who say that, well, you are not a front runner in the first instance, and so they don't consider you a threat to unseating or stopping any other contestants from getting that position.
You hear a lot of talks in politics. You hear a lot of propaganda, and it's very good for people to have this kind of impression that I'm not a frontliner. But what I have to tell you that I brought a kind of momentum into Action Alliance, and that momentum has made me to be a frontliner. I'm fully on the ground in Imo State, and Action Alliance is fully on the ground. And we are doing very well.
Well, they said that you initially wanted to be the Labour Party candidate, but that didn't work out, and so you ended up, and that's how you ended up with AA.
That issue is past, and I would like to revisit it. It's gone and it's gone.
So are you still getting the support then of those who are traditional supporters of Labour Party as a result of the P2B factor? How is that going to happen when you're now in AA?
I'm getting massive support from Imolites, irrespective of parties. I'm the man on the ground and the man that have been moving about, making the necessary contacts, making the necessary, going around making the necessary contacts, meetings, rallies, and conversation. And I know that Imolites, irrespective of parties, are tired of what I might call traditional politicians. They are looking for somebody that is just a technocrat in politics, and that's what I represent.
But why do you even think you have a chance or you will win this poll? Because if you look at how the whole thing is structured now, you're trying to unseat the ruling party, the government of the day. Then you also do have Labour Party. Then you have the PDP, and you are also in the fray. So if all of those members of opposition gather together, they'll just end up splitting the votes, and then the ruling party just walks back into government house.
There have been a lot of permutations, just like you said, and a lot of people have been saying that there's going to be division of votes because of different parties trying to face the government in power, the party in power. But what I'm trying to tell and say is that from what is on the ground, it's going to be a very interesting contest because every 4 of the candidates are quite formidable. And I tell you, I have an edge over all the candidates that are contesting.
And the edge you have is what precisely, General?
The edge is the massive support I've been receiving from Imolites who want an end to insecurity in the state, who believe that I have the capacity, that I have the contact, I have the reach, I have the temperament to engage and end insecurity in Imo State. That is where my power base lies. And everywhere I go, people have been talking about that, and I've been educating people on ways of ending insecurity in Imo State, and by extension, Ali.
What precisely would you say is a challenge of insecurity in Imo State? What has singled out Imo, I mean, of the many states in the Southeast for this particular security challenge?
The main challenge I can say is that you cannot use threats. You cannot use arrogance. You cannot use guns. You cannot use bullets to resolve conflict. You must always come to the negotiating table and apply well-established, rules of engagement. You have to negotiate. You have to pacify. You have to reintegrate into the society. And luckily, some of these are young men and women who are, who are in a protesting or creating issues. They don't hold any extreme ideological views. So it will be very, very easy, to bring them out from wherever they are and engage them in proper conflict resolution mechanism. It has worked elsewhere in the world. It worked, like in Sierra Leone, it worked in Liberia. So I believe in power of engagement, constructive engagement. So if that is applied, I believe that Imo State, which has become the hotbed of insecurity, will be handled. Also, there has been a lot of insinuations that the government in power in Imo State, they are somehow fueling insecurity in the state. Like what happened recently where the candidate was openly prevented from going to attend the church service. That is highly condemnable in strong terms. So there must be level playing ground for people to exercise their freedom of movement, freedom of expression.
How has that been a problem for you? Have you experienced it anywhere, this issue of a level playing field?
It's work in progress. It's everywhere, but we continue to, meander through the obstacles. A lot of obstacles have been placed on the way, but we've been meandering it. The field is supposed to be level, but it's not level.
Can you share with us some of the challenges that you have faced?
Some of the challenges I can say I've faced, not really much because I've taken my time to make sure I work within the law, is some actions that the government of the day has taken to make sure that other parties are not visible, like the high signage fee of 54 million, and that limits you from, branding your vehicles, mounting your billboards, and all that stuff. So when you come into Imo State, you think that it's one party that is running for the election because the billboards are everywhere. So that's a major challenge.
But in the area of security and in other areas, you haven't faced any challenges?
Personally, I've not.
Okay, but tell us,
but it's not that it's not there. Personally, I've not.
Because you have raised this issue of insecurity and you've said that that is your greatest selling point, the fact that people think that you might be able to combat insecurity. Now, if this is such a big problem, how much of a challenge do you think this is going to be as security deploys for election and also as the umpire, INEC, deploys for the election come Saturday?
It is my belief that INEC and the security agencies will perform optimally and creditably. Why? This is a stand-alone election, just 3 states being covered. So I expect that we will have adequate manpower to make sure that there's no breach in security. And I expect too that INEC should perform their work in line with the law, without bias, without fear. So we want a credible election to take place in Imo State, and that's what I stand for.
And you have every belief, anyway, you already said that. But, General, do indulge me this morning. I mean, I was taking a look at your name, and I'm not Igbo. I don't know how it's pronounced. But I've looked at your biography, and it does show that you are indeed from Imo State. You have a very interesting name that could have been situated in the southwest of Nigeria. Has this provided any challenges for you in terms of marketing yourself as a bona fide, maybe not just resident, but as an indigene of Imo State?
To a little extent, yes, because when you see the name, you look at it that this is a name that's supposed to have originated from the southwest, that's the Yoruba area of Nigeria. And I started my military career as an officer in Ijebode. So I found it very, very difficult to convince, friends, associates, that I was not from Ogun State. But actually, I am from Imo State, Mbise Nation to be particular.
Very interesting. So how come you ended up with this name?
That's my grandfather's name, Ogonewe. Fight is my annoyance. That's the meaning in Igbo.
I see. Oh, well, I'm sure even our viewers too will be educated on that. But I want to believe that the people of Imo will certainly, recognize that name, and it's not proving any challenge for you on the field, or is it?
It has not proven any challenge because of my pedigree. My father is one of the most, distinguished, people from Imo State. He was a military officer, the 34th Nigerian to be commissioned as an officer, Colonel David Sunday Ognewe. So the name reverberates within the Igbo nation. So only the new generation that when they look at the name, they will, where is it from? But I am from Imo State.
Would you also say that your pedigree, even though you have said that well, that's also a selling point for you, and that you're leveraging that to say, look, I will be able to tackle the issue of insecurity in Imo and solve it? But oftentimes some people have, second thoughts about having generals in democratic spaces. They think that it will be very difficult for them to fit in. Have you faced questions in this regard?
I've not faced any question in this regard because of my nature, and I've not actually. So, but somehow some people look at how can a military officer operate in a democratic setting, and I tell them that the most democratic institution is the military. Things are organized, things are regulated to an extent, but you have your freedom of expression. That's what people don't know. The military, to me, is the most democratic institution you can get anywhere. Leave the laws, leave the orders, leave the regulations guiding us.
Okay. Well, I know my colleague Ayo has questions for you as well. Please go ahead, Ayo.
Well, it's good to see you again, Major General Ogunewe, retired. Now I'm well educated about how to sound the name. There's something on your one of your campaign posters, or online, that says, and I quote, "I will restore security, peace, and sanity in Imo State to foster an enabling business and investment-friendly environment." People would say every politician makes such a promise. Why should the people of Imo State believe you?
People of Imo State should believe me. First and foremost, I'm not a professional politician. I'm a technocrat in politics. And before I made that statement, I've looked at the feasibility, I've looked at the methodology, I've looked at the environment before I made that statement. And I repeat and I say that, one, that security is an important commodity that you will notice its importance when it is absent, just like in Imo State today. So without it being tackled, nothing can move forward. And just like I've said, that insecurity is like cancer. If you don't mitigate it, it will consume you. So my passion, and I will use all the knowledge I have to make sure that I bring insecurity in Imo State to an end. And the peculiar nature of Imo State, that Imo State shares border with the 4 remaining southeastern states. And if you see where this insecurity is happening, is most of them are higher in these border towns. So it takes a very good methodology that I've always explained to people how insecurity would be tackled. And a lot of people believe in what I've told them.
Well, General, one of the challenges that I have personally seen governments at various levels have is that of communicating with the people. there's always that distance. Even the previous conversation we had with someone from Imo State also said the same thing. There's that trust deficit in governance. How will you reduce the gap between the government and the governed? What will be your communication module? How frequently will you communicate with the people so that they can feel the impact of your governance?
What is said is true. And I just believe that being in government does not make you to be high up there, because government is for the people. So if you are a leader or a governor in a state, I believe that you should be able to reach the people you are governing. They should be able to ask you questions. You could create, a monthly media chat where you interact with them. They'll ask you questions. Just be frank. And you should be able to move around the state freely with minimum security. And you begin to build very good trust that this person, what he said is what he's doing. But where you come in as a governor, what is more important to you is your own individual security than the collective security. It becomes a problem. People will see you very far, distant from them. But when you see collective security as paramount, you reduce what I call individual security. And people will flow and believe in you. I will tell you something that there's a governor I so much admire. That's the governor Zulum of Borno State. When he came in, Borno State was at the height of insecurity. But he staked his life. He was not in an armored vehicle. He tried to engage. He's trying to reach. People were even telling him that, look, you are endangering your life. He said, no, I believe in collective security. And to achieve that, I have to risk my life. And if you look at what is happening today, he has, to a great extent, achieved peace in Borno State.
All right.
That is the kind of governor I would like to emulate.
All right. So back to you, Chamberlain.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Well, General, we have to wish you all the best for the forthcoming elections, but it's almost done now. It's just a couple of days away. So we wish all of the candidates, and like we always say, may the best man win, and hope there will be a peaceful election in the state, General. Thank you for joining us today, and all the best to you.
Thank you very much. I prefer a peaceful election too.
All right, so let's get back to taking a look at what's playing out in the polity. And here in the studios, we've got Dr. Tunde Olusunle, who is a media practitioner and the former presidential advisor from 1999 up until 2007. Good morning, and thank you.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, quite a lot of scenario playing out. This weekend, there will be elections, in these off-cycle elections. But only yesterday, the Labour Party candidate did speak up, saying he's effectively joined opposition. The APC responded to him, saying, look, stop maligning the judiciary. They don't give judgments based on public opinion. If you can't prove your case before the courts, so be it. If Supreme Court had ruled, appeal to God. Just try and see how you can move. All of that just playing out, coupled with, grappling with the economic situation too. And I know the media has got to report all of these scenarios and ensure that they keep the people in proper perspective. So from what you've seen, looking at all of these things playing out, and then looking at how the country seems to be headed, wherever it is headed, what do you think of this?
Well, thank you once again. The forthcoming gubernatorial election in Kogi State is going to be probably one of the most robust, and most interesting. I say this because of the sheer number of very important, in quotes, stakeholders to the office. It's been quite a while that we had more than 2-3 candidates that you can say are really, really formidable in the Kogi political space. There are going to be considerations along the lines of power shift. There are going to be considerations about, possibly religious things and so on and so forth. I come from Kogi West, which is the Yoruba-speaking area in Kogi State. And it is a measure of the fact that, my people are very, very strident in their advocacy for the governorship that we have 3 candidates as we speak. The PDP is on, the ADC is contesting, and the AA is also contesting in the state from my senatorial zone, which has 7 local government areas. In Kogi Central, there is perhaps just one candidate, Ahmed Usman Ododo of the APC, who has been floated by the outgoing governor, Yahya Bello. In Kogi East, that's the Igala-speaking area, there are quite a number. There is the SDP, whose flag bearer is Ajaka. There is an admiral, former chief of naval staff, Gabriel Usman, who is also staking the claim on the platform of the Accord Party. So, this is the kind of intensity. This is the kind of vibrancy we are seeing now. And, actually, the kind of, let me say, suspended anticipation in the minds of our people. It's going to be very interesting, but like I said, the people, my people, so to say, in Kogi West, really are desirous of this position.
How do you see these dynamics playing out? Because, as you just highlighted now, the central, the east, the west, 3 in the west, even though the elders think they pitched their tent in 1. The governorship factor, you say he's floating the central candidate. Then in the east as well, you know how significant the Igala votes will be in the scheme of things. They are hugely boisterous and confident about what will happen. So what do you think will be the determining factor in which of all these dynamics that will take the day?
Very importantly, 1, spread, which candidate has rooted tentacles in all 21 local government areas in the state. Second, of course, will be experience. Who has that kind of experience that can move the state forward from, the stagnation it has witnessed in the last 7 years plus. Courage, comportment, and personality.
Yeah, but doctor, are these not ideal situations you're giving to us? Because we know in this country, look, if the governor says, I want this man, chances are that you will be the man.
Yeah, you see, but it's also possible for an incumbent governor who's floating a candidate to be flattened at the elections. And let me give you this scenario. The governor comes from Kogi Central, which has 5 local government areas. Unfortunately, his administration has not covered itself in glory all this while. You also have heard, complaints and, murmurs about salaries, for instance, not being paid. Inland states like ours are very heavily dependent on, their civil service and dependent on government, for sustainability. And then, when you keep the people hungry, people go on for months, they don't get paid. When they get paid, the director who is supposed to be on level 16, 17 is going home with 20,000 naira to feed a family and attend to other needs. There are subsisting, animosities in people who are also looking for an opportunity this time around to say, no, unfortunately, you've been here for so long, but we will not want a perpetuation of this. This is a possibility. People have also, alluded to the fact that the outgoing governor has more or less kept his anointed away from public view. He makes only measured appearances because, people believe that his expressive capacity may actually be constrained.
I know you know better about that one, but we had presidents who didn't participate in debates and they won. So
absolutely, So, but these are considerations. But critically, unfortunately, Kogi people have had a very raw deal this past 7.5 years. Now, you go to the Igala area. The Igala people are also very agitated. It's the first time, for instance, like I always joke, that they find themselves sitting in the waiting room because they want to see somebody in government house. Back to back, it's been somebody from there or not, except for the military period. As far back as 1992, as a much younger one, less than 1 year of the creation of Kogi State, I was headhunted from the Daily Times where I was and made Director of Information in Kogi in 1992. I served Prince Abubakar Audu and also worked with his successor, the military administrator, Colonel Paul Omero. I worked with his successor, Colonel Zigu Lassa Fakriya. So, I think I know a bit about the socio-political dynamics of the state.
You'll certainly talk more about that in just a moment, but pardon me, we need to go to break. But we'll be back and let you dissect it a little further. Stay on with us.
Heartburn and indigestion? Try Just Eat. My recommendation for the past 26 years, Just Eat. Reliable remedy for heartburn, indigestion, flatulence, and acidity.
Oh yes, Dr. Tunde Olusunle is still here with us. He's a media practitioner and a former presidential advisor from 1999 to 2007. That's a long time to have been advising presidents. You've
also said advisor now.
I don't know, but let us take a look at. You've talked about the factors that will be determining, how any of these candidates whom you have, stated their, their ethnic affiliation, how they will fare. You've talked about spread, experience, courage, comportment, and is it personality? Yeah, personality is the last one now. But when you look at all of them, and when you look at the fact that you have three very visible candidates from Kogi West, you have this one visible one from Kogi Central, and at least two visible ones. I know there are a lot more candidates, but these are the ones that one can easily mention their names. And you have looked at the factors which will determine whether or not you'll be able to make any meaningful impact. And you also look at the playing field, what it is that they will be up against. The umpire, INEC, says that it hopes to do better in this forthcoming election. How is that trickling down, the message of INEC doing better? Have you been able to test the pulse on the ground and see whether the candidates are enough to excite people to also have some confidence in the electoral umpire?
Thank you very much. As it were, like the question you posed about the candidates from Kogi West, for instance. Today is a Tuesday, and as they say in politics, 24 hours is a very long time. We don't really know what is going to get down by Thursday, by Friday, because principally, the Kogi West people want the governorship, they want the trophy. Chamberlain talked about the issue of Kogi Central and a monolithic candidate the other time. But you probably also know that the victory of Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan of the PDP, who reclaimed senatorial seats the weekend, has also added impetus to what is going on. To this extent, it's probably going to be a diluted Kogi Central we're going to have. In Kogi East, yes, we may have just about 2 or 3 very visible candidates, but there are about 9 of them, and so everybody's going to be plucking at the votes. So, like I said, things remain fluid as we speak. We don't know when politicians, candidates, and so on will lock themselves up in a room and say, can we all work together for this common cause? Because as people say, well, sometimes get it first and then, move on from there.
What about the umpire? Do you think that there's sufficient confidence on the ground for the umpire?
Very, very, very important question. Maybe I should say, and this is not particularly about the umpire, but about circumstances that may compel the umpire to do a very good job. Last Thursday or thereabouts, the Chief of Defense Staff, Christopher Musa, was in Kogi State, and he gave instructions about, the deployment of the security services. I've seen a few things on the social media, and suddenly people are getting a bit excited about the fact, wow, the kind of brigandage, the kind of thuggishness, and similar things that were witnessed about 4 years ago, where, our people from my state sang themselves to national recognition, playing on the sound of the bullet. That may be a different scenario this time. From what I gather, there will be collaboration between the agencies. We have a naval unit in Kogi State. The Chief of Defense Staff came to talk about the Army, who have been on all kinds of drills. The secret police is there. The civil defense is there. So we are believing that the police, they're going to be working together. And that will be very important, to instill voter confidence. Don't forget, too, that we wrote ourselves to global notoriety in Kogi last year when we had a scenario where a helicopter was actually procured to hover in the sky and fire people down there. I want to believe that the present dispensation, will disallow that. This probably will also excite people and encourage them to go out.
So if we can wind down with a few minutes now, what do you think is the disposition of the presidency on this matter?
Well, we want to just take off from his own admonition. We hear that the president said there should be level playing field for everybody. Government should be dispassionate. Let's hope that the orders will be carried out, because the problem we always have at the last minute is that of compromise. Unfortunately, integrity has become a very cheap commodity. It's so easy now to procure people, put them in a room, ingratiate them with bags of money, and they begin to, sing another tune. But let's hope that the president is able to stand on this, and let's hope that as commander-in-chief, his words and his admonitions to the various subsets of the election will hold water, and people will
There'll be several voices. If the president says level playing field, there'll be voices, probably his members of the party will say, yes, Mr. President, but we can't afford to lose, we can't lose the state. We're a ruling party, we'll have to show ourselves and make sure we win, albeit legally. And then the president, of course, they also want to make sure that they restore confidence, public confidence in both INEC, judiciary, and the system, so that people who were, hitherto dissatisfied will say, okay, well, a level of transparency. But there's also there are voices saying, well, they're not exactly sure if the president is supporting the party in the state. And then others say, wait a minute, would the president say level playing field? What if the PDP wins? We know that the candidate of PDP was not, was antagonistic sometime to the senator. So all of those dynamics, just wondering, so how will all of this play out? Do they count for something or at all?
This election, we're talking about Kogi now, but don't forget there are two other elections on the same day, in Imo and Bayelsa. This is an opportunity for the president and this administration to show that they have become electorally born again, to the extent that they ensure that my votes and your votes, count in Bayelsa, in Kogi, and in Imo. This is a test case of their neutrality and our capacity to be a true democracy.
Let's see if anybody can say at the end of this elections, go and sin no more. Well, if the electoral public. But Doctor, a pleasure having you. We'll look forward to at least some more time to take a look at all of these scenarios as interesting
and
as
coffee
they
for
are.
me next time too.
Absolutely.
So that Mokwe is not the only one.
It's going to be on the house.
Okay,
as a matter of fact, consider it done.
All right, then.
Well, back in just a moment, everyone. Stay on with us.
From the north to the south, east and west, Network Africa brings you news stories from all around the continent. with wide range in coverage, insights, and analysis of special issues. We dissect Africa in its beauty and peculiarities. Network Africa tells the African story from the African perspective. Network Africa, weekdays at 4 p.m. Stay connected to the world with Channels TV Podcast and get all the trending stories. Simply log on to channelstv.com, click on podcast, select the program of your choice, and listen. Our podcast is available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Tap the expertise you trust. Touch the stories that touch you. Anytime, anywhere.
Oh yes, that's the man here with us in the studios, Honorable Leke Abejide, the governorship candidate of ADC for the Kogi elections. Good morning and thank you for coming on.
Good morning, Chamali. Good morning, Mark.
Well, I know you say your campaign is going on smoothly, isn't it?
Yes.
So, but have you heard some people who criticize you saying, well, yes, the Honorable is campaigning, but his campaign is on media, that you don't have the foot soldiers in the state?
Thank you so much. Well, if it's on media, I wouldn't be a member, media only, or not on ground. I wouldn't be a member of House of Representatives. I contested first time on the platform of African Democratic Congress, ADC, in 2019, and I won. And the party was not known in the state. I contested the second time. And even this time, the margin of leads, if you put APC votes and PDP votes, it's not up to half of my votes. I didn't come alone this time. I also came along with another House of Rep member from the same Kogi West that I come from.
So you're hoping
so
to
out
have
of
a
the three
combined
federal
effect?
constituency, now, yeah, my impact got to the next constituency next to me. And that was why Andy was able to win. And out of the three federal constituency, we're controlling two now. That could be worse. So if somebody say, I'm just on the media, and then you see me across the 21 local government, I have structures across 21 local government. So what are they talking about? The result will show. I don't normally argue too much when it comes to this type of, where you are going to see the manifestation. When the result comes out, you'll be able to know.
So it doesn't matter if the governor is supporting the candidate from the central?
The governor has finished his term. It's about going. So even his support is even a problem for the candidate even.
How?
Because, yes, he has not managed the state very well. And that is why you see division. It was not like this before. We expected that this governor ought to have united the state. By now, people from East, Kogi East, will not be contesting. If we had picked somebody from his party in Kogi West, even me, I wouldn't have been contesting by now. So, because of the way he managed the party and managed the state, people are disenchanted. They are not happy. People are groaning. Some now, just like a snake, you can't see the hands of a snake. Snake, it's inside the snake. So, but at appropriate time.
You don't have snake in your own party?
No, you cannot say everybody is perfect, but definitely I have majority on my side.
This talk of disenchantment, people always say that this happens to most governors in their second term, that people are always saying, oh, they're disenchanted, they're disenchanted. But, the truth of the matter is, he's been there for a while. How come no one was saying this while he was still governor? But he's still governor. But what I mean is, while he still held sway before his second term started to come to an end.
People have been saying it. You remember during his preparation for second term, people refused that they will not allow him to come. It was a lot of pleads from different governors as at then. I was one of the people they pleaded with because I complained that in my own side, where I come from, there was no thing to show. I cannot climb the podium and campaign for him because if you are governor for 4 years, then you don't construct a single road from my place, you don't provide water. Even you see recently, just maybe yesterday or 3 days ago, that he announced that he's going to pay WIC or he has released money for WIC. I have been the one taking care of all this. So I've been paying WIC fees for both public and private schools in my federal constituency for the past 6 years. So people suffer, the parents, they will struggle to pay. There's no way they can solve it. And they are not getting their salary in full. Those who are working at the local government, some don't get at all, some are getting in percentage. Up to now, it's still the same thing.
Has anybody been able to really, understand precisely why that is? That's this salary issue. Because we also understand that he inherited a big debt burden in terms of this salary problems.
Yes, actually, in 2016, he inherited backlog of salary just 4 months. But Governor Wada, who left the stage then, made appeal to the federal government to get a bailout. I think the bailout was about either 50.8 billion naira to pay the backlog of the salary, to dualize Lokoja main town, and then to pay the pensioners and other things. It was not given because they thought he wanted to use the money for election. But immediately this current governor came in, he was given. But those salaries were not paid. And also, the past political office holders, they were part of people he wanted to pay. They were not paid. Just recently, he paid 1 month for many months.
I think that was 30.8 billion, not 50, right?
No, they got that one first. They got twice. 30.8 and then 20 again. 50.8 billion. So to solve all this problem, if you go to Kogi State, you don't need to be told. When you see people that are okay, you will know. Those people, when you see them, you see their appearance, you see their lifestyle, you know that there's nothing to.
So why is it then? When you look at the fact that there is a huge debt burden, Kogi is struggling financially somewhat, and you have this expectation. There will be a massive expectation on the part of the people for whoever it is that is coming in spite of the lean resources. Why would you say that we have so many candidates running to be governor of Kogi State?
Well, I have just told you, somebody like me, I wouldn't have been in this race if I picked somebody from Kogi West. Me, I'm running as a result of the pressure from my people that I have been doing well as a member of House of Representatives. They've given me something, a little, and I have delivered. That if I have opportunity to govern the state, I'll be able to do better for them. As a member of House of Rep, I've done a lot of roads, my place, which is not even under my own schedule. It shouldn't be in my own jurisdiction. It also be that of executive. But because they are not doing it, I have to venture into it and start doing it. So I'm running for this office to change the narratives that Kogi State is a civil service state. We have mineral resources we can use. We have arable land that we can also develop and make the Kogi State to be even exporter of sesame seeds, because our land grows sesame seeds just like in Jigawa State, in Nasarawa State, in Benue State. This product alone, this agricultural product alone, can sustain the state. Because I have tried it and I have seen it working.
You're a farmer?
I was not a farmer, but I did, before I came into government, I was one of the major exporters of this SFC. So, and I know that it comes from the farmer, and I know the farmers. And we are buying from Nasarawa, and we were buying from Benue, a lot. So, and I checked and I gave the seedling to my people when I became House of Rep, and they planted and it germinated and came out with good seedling. And they started making money from there. So I see if there is opportunity to expand it, it can grow from there. Instead of relying on government to feed.
Was there an opportunity during this government?
Come again?
This government, did you reach out to them saying, look, this is a possibility? Did they refuse you? Did you go to them?
This current, they don't listen. Even who are you going to reach out to? Even this white payment, when I pay for the 4 year, first, second year, I invited the Commissioner for Finance. And I told him, I said, why don't you people take this thing and be paying? But instead of this parent to go and be looking for money, that is only my federal constituency that are not paying for themselves. Other federal constituency, parents are struggling to pay. So they will pay 4 year, pass, 5, 6, 7. It's only this last year now. Okay. And it's only for public school. The private schools are not being taken care of.
We know the Kogi West Elders Forum chose you. They say they endorsed you. But you have other candidates too. So did you reach out to those candidates and say, look, in the interest of, to boost the chances of the West, let them step down or agree to work together with you or something? Because if all three of you go into the elections, are you concerned that they may chip away at some of the votes that you may get from the region?
Definitely, I reach out to them. You know, even before I was endorsed, I knew that even though you talk to them, they will not step down because they belong to different political parties. So it's not very easy, except the party is involved before they now step down. But I want to say this. I had Brahma, Yinka Brahma, talking. He's a very young guy, and he was accusing the others of bribery, of corruption.
He said there's an allegation.
Where did they get the allegation? From my own background, I have never in my life, I've never gone to any police station. I've never been to any court. I don't do this type of backdoor thing. That is my own nature. And that's why you see, even when I was coming to politics, he said, I cannot win unless maybe you belong to this group or you go and meet this person or you do that. I said, no, power belongs to God. If it is the wish of God for me to win, then I will win. But me, I will never be part of those people joining courts. I'm a Christian. Not by mouth, I practice whatever I preach. And I will never do that. To go for somebody like General David Jemibewon, the former governor of Old Western Region, and a young boy of 40-something years to be accusing them of corruption. What am I going to give to them that they don't have? And I decided not to even give anything to those others, because if I do it, they'll be thinking maybe if they eventually pick me, they'll be thinking maybe I have induced them. I didn't give anybody anything. It's just because of my antecedent. If you know, Google my name, and Google Yinka's name, and know my antecedent, and know his own antecedent. Nobody has ever accused me of any corruption in this country, or anything. And I have been in my private sector, I've worked in private sector, I'm now in public office. Nobody has ever accused me of duping. Somebody called me. The person is an Igbo guy. He said, okay, if you work hard, though, you win this election. I said, why do you say so? He said, because we see you as the most credible. I said, but you are not from Kogi State. He said, yes. He said, but there are some candidates. He said, one of them took him $100,000. I said, what did you do? He said, they did property business, and the money went on the treasury today. It was not, the guy did not pay him. So these are the kind of, so people that want to govern the state. People who did this selection, they know what they are doing. They have seen me in the last 4 years in government. What is there in the House of Reps? Go and see what I've done in my federal constituency.
Let's bring in our colleague Ayo.
Well, Honorable, one of the things that bothers me when we talk about these issues of governance and all has always been how it directly affects the people, especially in the rural areas. Well, I know you mentioned that you've gone to all 24 local governments of your state, but speak to us about your plans for governance at that local level. You are not unaware of the issues a good number of people have all over the country about what governors do with first local government administrations and then local government funding. What will be your own action plan to ensure a more effective, independent local government administrations?
Thank you so much, Ayo. I said it in my campaigns. Most of the campaigns I did across the state, that first thing first, the local governments will be given autonomy. Either there's a law backing it or not, me, as a governor, I will give them free hand to operate. Whatever is allocated to them in terms of federal allocation will be directly given to them for them to function. You see, most local governments are dead just because the fund does not go to them. It goes to what they call JAC account. And in that account, the state money is there, the local government is there. So most of the governors will just take action of it and give it out to the chairman, the appointed. Most of them are not even elected. And this local government will not be able to pay salary. They will not be able to do even ordinary drainage. They will not be able to do because they don't have the fund. But in my own time, I will ensure that local government come back fully and function well and do well so that there will be less insecurity at the local level. If you come to go to most of this local government, most of the youths who are supposed to be working in the local government, they are not doing anything, they are idle. And that is what is responsible for insecurity in the state.
Okay, if we can,
that is how we can develop the local government. That is how the rural dwellers can enjoy.
If we can dwell on that a tiny little bit more, you're a member of the House of Representatives at this moment. So one is wondering, what would be your initiative? What would you be saying? Or maybe I should put it this way. What do you think is responsible for the various state houses of assembly not agreeing to a full autonomy of the local government administrations in their states?
One of the things responsible for that is because if you look at most of the House of Assembly members, they are like these stooges of the governor. They cannot say anything against the governor. In fact, I'm a member of House of Reps now. I can go to the agency oversight. I'm the chairman House Committee of Customs in the 9th Assembly, and also the current chairman House Committee on Customs and Excise in this 10th assembly. So I can oversight my agency. Whatever they are doing wrong, I can challenge them. But in some states, especially in Kogi State, if you say you are a chairman of a committee and you go to a ministry, from what I heard from those who just left, before you go to the ministry, before you go back to your office, they will call them. They will call you and say, why did you go there? Who sent you there? From the executive arm of the government. So this is how the state has become. And when there is no check and balances, the governor will do whatever he likes. See, I'm not against having a cordial working relationship with your member, but allow them to function. Let them be able to checkmate you. And then whatever is due to them, also give it to them. I remember this last assembly that wound up in the state, the people from my side, I represent 3 local governments. They didn't even dig one well, a well, not to talk of borehole, because their own constituency allowances were not given to them. They didn't dig a well. So they went and some came in with a very good name. By the time they were leaving, their name got spoiled, because people thought they were getting the money and they didn't give it to them. Well, in truth, they didn't get anything. That's how it is. And that's how Kogi State is. Because I'm from there, I don't know for other states. I think other states like Lagos, they are doing very well. They allow them to function. Rivers, they are doing very well. But most states, it's like that.
Honorable, yes, the elections will hold. One person will win, others will lose. But I know you expect to win, of course. That's why you're in the race. But at the end of the day...
I will win.
You will win. Okay. We'll hear you. But, yeah, the House of Reps right now, too. But at the end of the day, you said this government didn't listen to some of the things you tried to suggest to them. In the event that the situation presents itself for you to suggest to the next government, would you be willing to work with them, whichever one that is?
I'm going to form the next government. I'm going to form the next government. I want to tell you that the election coming in Kogi State is not going to be about political party. It's not going to be about religion. It's going to be about who has the competence, who has the character, who has the reach, who has the knowledge, who has the experience, who has the connection. And in all this, if you look at the candidate that are parading themselves, I think I'm the best.
Are you banking on any support from maybe the center?
I'm the son of the president, so you know that we are the Asuaju people. We are the real Asuaju boys. Right from time I've been with him. It's not today. You know, most of them you see now that I say they are doing APC. They were against us. They will, at a point in Kogi State, if you mention his name, they will go after us. Even me, a lot of things they did against us.
Who are they? Did they include members of the current government?
Yes, yes. You know all this. We don't need to deceive ourselves. Even this current governor contested against him. If other governors behaved the way Governor Yabelo behaved, that's why he wouldn't have been president. Even though he was going to be president, it wouldn't have been under the platform of APC. When the other governor said they should allow the power to rotate to the south, he said no. And he said that it's a recipe for crisis if they try to take him out of the race. And they left him alone. He was alone. All other people stepped down. He refused to step down. So he was not part of us before. So it's just now that he came and became president, they now run under him. No, we know ourselves. We know who is real.
So you are expecting some support from the president. What sort of support are you expecting?
The support I expect from the president is level playing field. That's all. Level playing field. Whoever is popular, let him win.
Okay, Honorable Lucky Abejide, you heard him there. He's a governorship candidate for ADC in Kogi State. Thank you for coming on, and all the best to you and your team.
Thank you so much. And you congratulate me on Sunday.
Okay, but we have to congratulate Professor Ainaina now. He sent us an email, several other people. Well, he says, first, INEC cannot afford to fail Nigeria now. It must restore its integrity during these off-cycle elections in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi states. Nigerians, he says, are still reeling from the perceived botched or failure of INEC to uphold election results to IREV. Hopefully, he says, INEC must put their house in order because Imo is a very volatile state. An election in that state must be seen to be free from any glitch in uploading results to IREV or manipulating results during and after election to avoid full-blown civil strife by outlaws or non-state actors.
Well, Chairman, I was reading a tweet by Professor Nakin. I don't know why Dixon Eckers, but let's quickly run through Dixon Eckers' email. He's talking about the presidential election. He says, we've heard the presidential candidates of the PDP and the Labour Party spoke at different times after the Supreme Court verdict, and it's reassuring that we may be having an opposition to checkmate the ruling party. Former President Buhari and President Tinubu were regional political actors and couldn't get to the center until they formed alliance and took the nation by storm. Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar should merge their structures and work towards a common goal. Greed and selfishness must be stewed with understanding of the power rotation of North and South. We need a virile, I believe that's his virile, yeah, must spell differently, and powerful opposition in Nigeria. Can't fault that. Let's leave it there.
Okay, so there you go. I guess that's it. That ends the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
I'm Mal Kwelgu, so thank you so much for watching.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a productive day.